there's several different certifications that you can get. You can get small business, woman-owned, minority-owned, veteran. You can get disabled. There's something called Hub Zone. Hub Zone is based off of where your office is actually located. If your office is located in the inner city, they provide different certifications and opportunities for that. So when you look at contracting, another thing I want to point out too is that there's really contracting can be looked at two ways. You have the government side of contracting, and then you have the corporation side of contracting. Okay. And those certifications can kind of go for both, depending on the type of certification that you get.
Okay.
So the majority of my business comes from corporate, because that's banks. So even though I'm a government contractor and I'm certified, I utilize my certifications to do business with corporations versus, and I do have, like, for instance, HUD. HUD is, that's federal.
Right.
So my preservation company has done contracts with HUD.
Okay.
So I've done both federal and government and corporate, but the majority of my stuff come from the corporate side.
Got you.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process when you first got certified, because that was a new world to you, I'm assuming.
I didn't even know it existed.
Right. So how'd you even find out about it, and then talk about, like, actually getting certified, the process?
Yeah, one of the companies, I think it was, as a matter of fact, it could have been HUD on the application and asked if I had a diversity certification. Like, what?
Light bulb.
Yeah, like, what is that?
Yeah.
So I contacted the vendor management. Like, hey, what is diversity certification? And they broke it down for me. Oh, it's a certification that really sets your company apart. It is a document that basically says that you truly are who you say you are.
Right.
Because what happens is you have a bunch of white companies that utilize this or try to get certifications because they know how important certifications are,
right.
But we don't know. They know how much money is available in contracting when it comes from minorities and women. So what they'll try to do is, they'll use their wives to be the front of the company to try to get the woman-owned certification, because then they can go after woman-owned contracts.
Okay.
Or they'll get, they homeboy who might be Black
right.
as the front of the company and put him on the business so that they could try to get the minority-owned certification, right? So when I found out what it was, I'm like, oh, and start reading because that's how my contracts extended for so long. The company had to have so many minority-owned, woman-owned, certified companies. So if I tell you, if the vendor asks me, hey, are you a woman? Yes. Are you Black? Yes. But how do I prove that? Right. And we prove that through documentation, which is considered the certification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's how I learned about diversity certifications.
Got you. So what are some of, like, the, I guess, like, minimum, I'm sure there's a bunch of different things. What's some of the minimum criteria that you have to meet in order to be certified? Let's say, for example, for your certification.
Well, I had to be a woman, I had to be Black, right?
Check the box.
Yeah.
Got that
right,
covered.
You got that covered. You have to have a registered business. And when I say that, I stress that because you would be surprised at the number of people who have businesses, but their businesses are not registered. Their businesses aren't registered in their state. They do not have the proper documentation. You have to be registered in your state. You have to have your federal EIN number. You got to have your bank account. And then in addition to that, you truly have to have the experience. You got to have the experience. Some people want you to have the experience for a year or more. Some will take you immediately.
Right.
And let me explain what that means. So on the certification level, there's 4 different levels of certification. Okay. There's the federal level, there's the state level, there's the city, and then there's the corporation level.
Okay.
Well, one does not recognize the other.
Okay.
So that's one of the things I love about Certify My Biz too, is that we help people determine which certification makes sense for their business. So I'll give a prime example. If someone comes to me and they say, I want to do business with Kroger or Target, why would I get them federally approved to be a contractor?
Right.
That means they need to be corporate
certified,
right? So we look at that's why people always say, why isn't your prices on your website? I'm like, it's not a one size fits all. And plus, everybody does not qualify for certification. So we look at the company, we look at what they do, what services they provide, what state they're in. Some states are what I consider to be very rich in opportunities. North Carolina, huge. Texas, huge. What else? Another big city. Georgia, huge.
Really?
Yes. So these are some states where when people come to me, like someone says North Carolina, I'm immediately like, you need to be state certified.
Right.
You know, I would do state before corporation.
Why? What is it about those?
Because that state is committed to making sure that minorities and women get contracts. There's some states that just have certifications, but they don't have the commitment. Okay. So what I mean by the commitment is every year, whether it's the federal level, the state, the city, or corporation, they look at their budget, right? And they say, we're going to take 20% of our budget and we're going to set this money aside to do business with minorities.
Right.
North Carolina has a very high percentage of what and who they want to do business with. So North Carolina is one of those states where they're going to put everything out there. They make everything almost like a contract.
Right.
Indiana, and I'm going to do a comparison. So North Carolina right now, if I look on their site, it's probably like, let's just say 100 open opportunities.
Okay.
Indiana might have 4.
Wow.
So I'm just trying to show you the big difference between a commitment from a state. North Carolina is really good at that. Texas is amazing with that. They are really committed to doing business with people who have their certifications.
So in the different states, like you said, between Indiana and North Carolina, do they are they allotted the same spend, but just one is more committed? So it's just a different amount?
Yeah, that's another thing. Your state might have, one state may have 7%. North Carolina, So they might say, we're going to take 7% of our $100 million budget and set it aside to do business. Or someone else, like Indiana is 14%. North Carolina, I believe, is in the 20 plus percent. You might have some states that are like 7%. So that's why I always say that every state is different. So when someone comes to me like, I just want to get certified, I'm like, we got to look at the big picture. We got to look at what you do. And then that's another thing. We look and see, has that state ever awarded trucking contracts?
Right.
What would be the purpose of me getting you certified on the state level if they've never awarded trucking contracts, if you're in trucking?
Right.
So we look at everything.
Got you.
Yeah.
Is that public information, like how much the state actually has to spend? Like, can you research that?
Absolutely.
Where can people research that kind of information?
Absolutely. So you just put in, you should be able to go to your state's procurement website. Okay. So basically that's their purchasing department. Okay. And it should tell that information there. If not, I always tell people, just use Google. All you got to do is put in like, North Carolina's, I think they call it diversity budget or something of that sort. And then you just put in, and a lot of times it'll pop up and you'll be able to see it somewhere. But yes, that budget is open. So like the federal government has a $500 billion budget. It is a law. It is a law that they have to spend 23% with small businesses. They have to spend 5% with minority-owned businesses, another 5% with women-owned businesses, and then another 3% with veterans. Okay, it is a law.
Wow,
it's a law, and so that's another thing we don't know. I'm like, y'all, that's 20 for just for being Black and a woman. That's 50. If I take both, 50, 5 and 5, that's $50 billion. Even if I got 100,000,
right.
Of that $50 billion, because it's set aside to do business with companies like mine. I read an article the other day that the SBA, so the small business, remember I told you they get 23%. So even if you're not Black or even if you're not a woman, you still, and you're a small business, you're still falling that 23% bucket. Okay. Right? Yep. I read that they had last year a record-breaking number. They went way over and beyond. They did $145 billion with small businesses. They spent with small businesses. So their normal budget was $115 billion. They spent $145 billion. So they're doing business with us. Yeah. We're just not going after it because we just don't know. So that's why I'm so passionate about teaching.
If you twisted, confused, or stuck about trucks, don't be dumb. This is the place to come. Truck and hustle. Let's go.